Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Ylam here. In this week's Fuji Friday, I definitely have a few stories that I want to talk about, so let's go ahead and get right into it. The first item that I want to discuss is the new X-Pro3 announcement that should be coming pretty soon, which is around mid-October. So we still have a month to wait, but it is coming very quickly. But there is a lot of rumors about it, and I do want to cover it. So over in FujiRumors.com, there's two specific sections that I want to talk about. The first one is the X-Pro3 isn't going to have IBIS, or at least that's what the rumor is, which is kind of interesting because I was really expecting this to be the first camera outside of the XH1 to have IBIS. Number one, it's a premium body. We already know that from its price tag. And number two, it's also made in Japan. And I suspect that any of the IBIS bodies is probably going to be a made in Japan body only. So for me, this had a really good chance of having in-body stabilization, but it looks like from the most current rumors that it's not going to have it, which is a real bummer because this camera body, it has a very long cycle before the next one comes out. So it's going to be 3 to 4 years before we see the X-Pro 4, which means it's going to be without IBIS for quite a while, which is kind of a bummer. But IBIS is definitely one of the technologies that I think most camera bodies are going to have in the future because it's such a useful thing. And Fujifilm has a lot of great compact primes, but they don't have any type of stabilization built into those lenses. The next item that I want to talk about for the X-Pro3 is that it's going to come with a new design for its screen. It's not going to be the traditional tilt screen, which in all honesty, I think that tilt screen works really well, and I'm kind of surprised they just don't go with something that's already tried and true. Again, I go back to the fact that this is a very long life cycle camera body, so if the tilt screen isn't something that people like, it's going to be 3 to 4 years before it actually evolves out of that design. So this is something that's very interesting. I would think a new design like that would go into a camera body that's a little bit more used to having a fast cycle like the X-T3 or maybe the X-T30, but for something like the X-Pro series, that's a little bit surprising because traditionally speaking, this is a very retro camera, which means people like it for its retro styling, and having something that's super unique that isn't proven might not be the best idea in my opinion, but who knows, Fujifilm has been knocking out of the park with a lot of the camera designs that has come out with recently, so maybe this is going to be a real winner and it's going to really set the X-Pro3 apart from all of the other camera bodies. Maybe that's what they're going with, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this new screen design is going to work out for the X-Pro3 and whether or not that's going to be one of the peak distinguishing features that's going to get people to go buy the X-Pro series, because again, it's a very retro design. It's definitely for a very niche market, and we know that it's going to be an expensive camera, much like the XH1 or an X-T3 when it first came out. So that's something to watch out for, and I think in the coming weeks we're probably going to see more leaks and more rumors and more specs about this camera as we get closer to that October date. The next story that I want to discuss is about the Ronin S, and I have the smaller brother, which is the Ronin SC. So this DJI gimbal is going to get a firmware update, and it's going to support the X-T3 and the X-T2, which is really great. But one thing that I do have to warn you is that the support is severely limited. I read the firmware notes, and it says roughly the same thing that it says for the Ronin SC, which means that it will support the shutter button, but only for photo, and it's very limited, and it's probably going to be very slow because that's the way it is on the SC. And if you look at the app where it has these great features, none of these are actually supported for the Fujifilm system. Now the Ronin SE just got a firmware update, so that might have changed. I need to actually go and test it out to see if any of these features in here is actually supported. But so far on the first firmware revision for the SC, and most likely the Ronin S, it's going to be very limited on what you can do with the Fujifilm systems. In other words, if you actually want to use the record button on the gimbal, it's not going to be supported. Right now, if I put an X-T3 onto the Ronin gimbal and I put it in video mode, I cannot use the button on the gimbal to actually start and stop recording. So just bear in mind that it's going to be severely limited. So if you're thinking about rushing out there, getting the gimbal and thinking you're going to get full support from the gimbal and the camera system, you're really not going to get that. So I would definitely recommend that you actually see some proof that these type of features work for the Fujifilm system before you run out there and grab one of these gimbals, because support for the Fujifilm system has been very lackluster and it's definitely nothing to write home about. So the last story that I want to talk about is about the GFX series of cameras, the medium format cameras. It's the possibility that we'll actually see an X-trans sensor for that camera system, and that type of sensor is supposed to work really well for 4K video. There's actually a couple of slides on FujiRumors.com. I would definitely recommend that you go over there and check out the slides because it is rather interesting, especially if you can afford a camera that expensive, because it does give you quite a unique look and it's something that you might be interested in. But it just goes to prove that Fujifilm has been doubling down on video capable features for pretty much all of their camera line, and this is a really good idea because they're essentially going into a new market, which means there are new people that are going to be buying their camera systems. We know that DSLR or photo taking cameras, the sales of them have been declining year over the year. So going into a new market is really going to help them out because there's going to be new users coming into the Fujifilm ecosystem, and they might actually enjoy using the photo aspects of these camera systems. And this is something that I've been preaching on this channel for a very long time now, which is these cameras, they're content creating cameras. They're not just for photo, they're just not for video, they're for everything. If you can create content on them, you should be able to do it in these camera systems. If you want to survive in this new market, you have to be able to do everything really well. So take pictures, time lapses, slow motion, video, whatever you want to create content on, these cameras should be able to do it because we expect a lot out of our technology nowadays, and Fujifilm has done a great job of putting a lot of features into their camera bodies so that users has great flexibility in the content that they can create with their Fujifilm system. There are a couple of weaknesses to the Fujifilm cameras. I've already talked to them at length with my other Fuji Fridays, and really the Fujifilm system has improved drastically year over year, and I can't wait to see what the next generation of camera bodies will do. So that's all I have to talk about this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you in the next video.